Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster.
Don't you understand, George? It's because you were not born.
Film Church.
Well, a boy's best friend is his mother.
If he was created to love, then it's reasonable to assume he knows how to hate, and if pushed to those extremes, who knows what he might be capable of.
Hello, and welcome to Film Church Radio, the podcast that treats cinema as a religion. It's Sunday, I'm Branden.
I'm Lewis.
And we're here to talk about movies. Each week, Lewis and I alternate picking a film for both of us to watch and discuss. Today, I picked the film Artificial Intelligence from 2001, directed by Steven Spielberg. This is kind of a coda episode to our leading on from our Kubrick series, because I didn't want it to end. And this is a film that Kubrick planned on making for about 20 years before deciding that this would be better as a Steven Spielberg film. So his plan was to produce it and have Spielberg direct it, but sadly he passed away before it was made. But fortunately, Spielberg was able to make the film and incorporate all of Kubrick's research using his designs, his treatments, all of that good stuff. The film stars Haley Joel Osment, Jude Law, Francis O'Connor, Sam Robards, William Hurt, and Jake Thomas. And guess what, Lewis?
What's that, Branden?
Today, we have a special guest. Our guest is a director, a filmmaker, a writer, a producer, and recently directed a film with me in it called Peace of Mind, which will be available on YouTube soon. And as soon as it is, we will put it in the show notes below. Now, usually when we have a guest, we let the guest pick the film. But since the film that our guest directed deals with similar subject matter of AI, I thought this would be a perfect episode to have him on. So without further ado, please give a warm welcome to Mr. Chance Smith from Inwood Park Productions. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me, y'all. I'm really excited to talk about AI. I have a lot of opinions about this movie, so I'm excited just to get started with all of it.
I'm excited to hear what your thoughts are, because I'm not sure if you love it or hate it. I really don't know. We've only spent one day together shooting this film, so I really don't know. I'm pretty sure I know what Lewis thinks, but yeah, I'm curious. So, listeners, if you want to know what we're watching next week, you got to stay till the end of the episode when we announce it. What else should listeners be doing, Lewis?
Listeners should be doing a variety of things, Branden. But we would like to say thank you for everyone who has been listening to the show and sending their love for it. It really means a lot. If you're new to the show and enjoying it, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell to be notified when a new episode is available. This is a film church, so we post episodes on Sundays. And if you really, really enjoy the show, just share it with people. Get it out there. Let other people know what you're listening to. We are now being hosted by Spotify, which has recently changed over. So if you really want to help the show, any listeners on Spotify would, just boost our numbers and help people find it. You can follow us on there as well, which would be wonderful. You can also find us on all social media platforms at Film Church Radio, where you can leave us a comment or send a message about the show. We also post extra content on YouTube as well. If you want to see us live and in person talk about AI, then you can go over to YouTube and you can see this exact same podcast, but with our faces, which is really great. We have also just put a poll up on our Eyes Wide Shut episode where we rounded out the films directed by Kubrick, and you can vote on the greatest Kubrick film. Currently a tie between 2001, Doctor Strangelove and The Shining. So it's pretty tight. It's going to be up until the end of May. So go over there and vote now. Tell us what you think. We want to know. And just rate and review it wherever you get the podcast that you're listening from. We want to hear from you. So please let us know. That would be great. So that is a lot of things on your to-do list, but I promise if you do them all, you will become Film Church enlightened. And that's what we aim to do. Now, before we discuss the film, what we're going to do here is our hymn section. Normally, this is where we sing the praises of other films that we've been watching this week. But as we have a special guest, what we're going to do instead is sing the praises of Chance. So, Chance, I have had the pleasure of seeing the short film that you made with Branden. Thank you so much for sharing it with me. I really appreciate it. But I really want to ask you a little bit about that before we get into your kind of film watching habits, I guess. Where has this idea come from? Like, what? I know that it's like a thematic track between like kind of the films that you've been making. Where did it come from?
Yeah, so it's a long story. So we've had the character of John for quite some time. I would say he's a part of the original kind of set of characters we made for this universe about like 8 years ago. And then when we were like, okay, let's make a set of short films. Let's start working on a series. The first character, like he's not a character I invented. He's a character that somebody else invented that like for our series, one of like our co-creators. And I just remember the first thing that like popped in my head whenever we were talking about the short films is, okay, I'm going to make a one with him because I know I can make it for cheap and I can make it quick. And I know that he's not a character who's a giant with a sword who needs to fight off like robots. Like I knew I could write something simple with him. So right whenever I knew like that was going to be the premise to it, I was going to use that character and I was going to use his companion orb. And then when I started really like thinking through the ideas, I came to the idea that like, okay, well, he needs to debate life. Like that would be what you would start debating with like an AI. Like if you started like, back and forth between them, that's what you go to immediately. And then because we've had these characters established, my first thought was, well, Orb wouldn't think he's alive. Like he would just assume he's not. And that changed the perspective from like which I wrote it. So instead of trying to like have the AI pleading, which, we'll get to in our discussion of AI later, instead of having like this kind of really emotional side to the AI, it's like honest that it doesn't think it's alive. And having the person really be like, no, but you are, like, I think it changed the dynamic. And so I wanted to explore that. So yeah, I came from a place of, I had some parameters I wanted to set. And then that was the story that kind of first popped into my mind. So.
Nice.
That's awesome. Yeah. And for the listeners who haven't yet had the chance to see Peace of Mind, what's the basic elevator pitch? What is Peace of Mind?
Yeah, so John, a scientist from our time who has time traveled to the future, that's a longer story, crash lands on a planet with his AI companion. They don't think there's a way out, and the only possible way is to destroy his only friend, his AI companion, and to make a communication device. So they kind of have a heated debate about what is life and who is alive and what's worth saving, which is all heightened by the fact that John gets a fatal wound kind of midway through the film, and it escalates what's going on and the conversation that they're having.
Awesome. And we are also very lucky to be joined by the actor of Peace of Mind. Branden, you played John. How was this experience for you?
It was great, honestly. Like I have been wanting to explore acting further for a long time. Typically, I'm behind the camera, but I have acted on occasion in my own projects. But yeah, just over the years, I've been like, man. I mean, I've always loved actors. It's one of my favorite things when making films is like capturing a performance, and watching an actor do their work. So I've always been interested in trying it, and I was on the Houston Filmmakers Facebook page and came across a post that Chance posted, a casting call for this short film, for a sci-fi short film. And the picture that he posted was this white guy with an afro. I was like, this might be a sign. This might be the thing that I should try out for. So I auditioned, sent in my audition tape, and then I had a call back, and they really liked it. And then after that, I just started working on my lines, started working on the part. It was kind of the perfect thing for me to do as someone who wanted to see if I wanted to do more acting, because it's literally just me and this AI robot in the it's like 12 minutes, right? The short film.
Give or take.
Yeah, so it's like it's a really good meaty role to kind of bite into and see what I could do with it. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was totally different to be on the other side of the camera. Yeah, I think it's going to change the way that I approach filmmaking myself. But I had a lot of fun with it. It was really great. It was really cool to see everything come together, because the whole time I was like, okay, all I have to do is like work on these lines. While meanwhile, Chance and his team is like trying to like figure out locations, trying to figure out all the props. I mean, it's a sci-fi universe, so they're like creating this robot. They're creating all the props and the crash ship and all of that stuff, and fake blood and all of this stuff that is really stressful as a filmmaker. So it was nice to be on the other side of it and be like, okay, all I got to do is memorize these lines, and I'm I'm good.
Awesome. Well, Chance, like, being a filmmaker isn't something that you just kind of fall into. I feel like it comes from a love of the medium itself. So what made you convert to the Church of Film?
That's there's a lot of things. I think that on like a personal front, I came to it, I want to say, rather late comparative to I think a lot of people. Like, you watch films when you're a kid, but I think whenever like it came to what could I do this, I don't think I made that honest connection. I don't think I realized that I could do it until I saw. It's gonna be the most cliche thing ever to say. Until I saw Clerks, I was like, this is far, like, this is too advanced for me. And then I saw Clerks, Pineapple Express, and like Harold and Kumar, and I was like, I could do that. Like, that's not that hard. And it was like those things that kind of made me realize it. I think when it comes to like love for filmmaking, and I would say this is one of my favorite films of all time. If you follow me on any social media, at least once every couple of weeks, I'll make some rant about it that's pretty aggressive. Treasure Planet, I think, is the coolest movie of all time. And there's specifically on the DVD, there was like a second, like there's the behind the scenes stuff, and they talked about the making of it, and it like blew my mind as a kid. And that was the first, I think, like, if I'm thinking about before when I didn't realize I could do it, but I was just like, this is a cool thing to do. I think it was that DVD's extra kind of thing. So yeah, that's when that would be the main thing for me.
Physical media, baby, is the way forward.
Yeah, 100%.
Do you have a pretty extensive physical media collection, Chance? I know. I see you post on social media sometimes. You do like the VHS watches and stuff.
Yeah, so I have behind me right now. I have a couple. Like, I have my main TV right here, but I have like a small little. I don't know if you can see it. Like a little Mac screen over there that I've connected to a couple VHS players. I have a small collection. I actually. Most of my ones from my childhood, I like were given away in a garage sale kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I've been collecting them since. So I've been kind of trying to find, like my Mighty Morphin Power Rangers or stuff like that. That I'm just like, I want to see this again. And so yeah, I don't. It's not a huge collection of VHSs and stuff. I have probably about 50, 100 like DVDs and stuff. I'm not a huge physical media when it comes to movie collector. I'm a big game collector, and like comic books and things like that. Like that's what I tend to do. But VHS has been a more recent thing for me because I wanted to recapture a little something from my childhood. And so,
for sure.
That became a big part of it. was VHS collecting. So
Yeah, I'm really glad I held on to a lot of the VHSs I had from childhood, and then recently started collecting even more. And like when people give away stuff, I'm like, I will take all your VHSs, please, thank you. So now I have a pretty extensive VHS collection, as opposed to Lewis, who has a very extensive Criterion collection.
uh,
But I think we kind of rival each other with uh, our diverse collections.
Yeah.
I think when it comes to the VHS stuff, what's interesting is a lot of people are getting, obviously you're getting rid of their tapes right now, and that's where most of mine come from. So like, it's like my grandfather's old tapes and stuff. That's what all the VHS theaters things have been. They've just been these like, I don't know what it is. It's been worn off. They found them in like an attic, and so like there's no writing on it. So it's actually me just finding out what's on this tape. So like I found everything from like old beer commercials and stuff to like a tape of a relative who was no longer around, and I was just like, oh, I didn't know this existed. It was a cool. I think it's a cool thing about like physical media, especially things like that are so random like this, that like you never know what you're gonna find in that group. And even if it is just like a old beer commercial, sometimes like those they're just killer. They're really good.
Yeah.
So
That's awesome. I'm curious, like, so like, our podcast is called Film Church Radio, and to us the real film church is like going to the cinema. Like a cinema is like the real church, but I don't really know what your take is on that. Are you a person who is like a devout, like you have to experience certain movies in the cinema, it's completely different, or are you not that way?
I do think it's completely different,
Yeah.
but I think it is a magical experience. I saw Everything Everywhere when it was in theaters,
Mhm.
and it was in a small, like, I was living up in Ithaca, New York, so it was like a small, like, independent theater. There's like 2 theaters in that whole building, and so it was a really intimate like experience, and it was wonderful, and I loved every part of it. But I'm a movie talker. I know it's like a super controversial thing, but I like to like yell when stuff's going on. Like it's a big way I experience and kind of live through the movies. So I like to watch things at home. I actually really liked when Warner Brothers was dropping all their stuff on HBO, because I could watch King Kong versus Godzilla, something that I don't really want to spend the money all the time to go to the theater to watch it, but I do love those movies and I really do want to watch them. So it's to me, like I would rather see some things there. I think the pricing's a big issue for me all the time.
Yeah.
Going always feels like it's such a hassle. But then there's things that like I would never have wanted to experience Everything Everywhere for the first time, like at my house. Like it would have been a weird experience, and I don't know if I would have liked the movie quite as much. And like they're reshowing one of my favorite Star Wars movies, Episode 6, is coming back to theaters into this month. And like I'll probably try and go catch that because I've never seen it, so it seems like an experience that'd be worthwhile. So I think I like the theater, but I'm a talker, so I'll just like yell throughout it, and I want to be able to get up and use my phone and be like, hold on, I gotta go to the bathroom, give me 2 seconds. And like I like all of the luxury of watching films at home.
Yeah.
And I also put a lot of like effort. Like I have a projector and all this kind of stuff. So I brought the theater to my house as much as possible.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like shouting during a movie, like if you're shouting with the movie, that's different from just like randomly having a conversation and being distracted and like not paying attention to it, Because like
fair.
I enjoy, like I'm not a big shouter in movies, but I enjoy going to a theater, like a packed theater where people are, they can't help themselves. They're having an experience while watching it, because then you're having that experience with them. It is like a religious experience to like be in a packed theater where everyone is just like screaming at the movie. There's nothing else like it.
One of my favorite experiences ever in a cinema was because someone shouted at the screen. Have you all seen Hereditary?
Yeah.
So
I have not, but I know enough.
Yeah, there's a minor spoiler coming up, but it's towards the end when like Toni Collette's on the ceiling and it like pans out And you don't see her at first, and then like I don't know how the camera does it, but then all of a sudden you're kind of aware of her. And there's a guy in front of me that just shouted "Nope," and then stood up and walked out.
Just didn't come back.
He was just, it was like, no, I'm done. This is too much.
That's funny because that's kind of towards the end of the movie. It's like you spent
Yeah.
all that time. Like that's the part that you're like, okay, I'm done.
Yeah, this is too much.
So go ahead.
Yeah, what film would you bring to, like, normally we would have you kind of bring a film for us to all watch and discuss, and, it's doing a little bit differently this time, but if, you were to return, what film would you think that you would bring with you for us to watch?
I've already mentioned it. I think that I would bring
Treasure
Treasure
Planet.
Planet. Yeah, like without a doubt. I think that's the movie that I know everybody's seen it, but people are kind of upset with how much I enjoy it just because it's on all the time, or it's like there and it's like always like, yes, we get it. So it would be that if I was to bring like just any movie. If I wasn't to choose that movie, I think I'd bring Clerks 2. I think that is probably my favorite comedy of all time. And I like Kevin Smith, and I like breaking down the way he works, because I think he has such a big platform at this point, and it still feels so small, and like how he's approaching everything, and so feasible. So I think
he's very open. He's very open with his process and with his his even just his thought process, and sharing how he got to the conclusions that he got to, the creative decisions and all of that. I love that guy. He's awesome.
Yeah, so I think that, like, if anything, it'd have been a Clerks. It'd have been a Kevin Smith movie. One of the three of those.
Yeah, awesome. Are there any other film gods besides Kevin Smith that are just like the Mount Rushmore of film gods?
I know everybody says it. I know it's cliche, but like, I think denying that he is actively or it has been one of the greatest directors. I think Tarantino deserves the spot on that list. Like, there's no way around it. Even if I don't always think that he is, I think some of his comments are stupid. I think that, like, sometimes he's just not always in the right. But if you just his films in and of themselves are so good that it's undeniable. I really like Sam Raimi. I think that, like, that's another thing when I look back on, like, Army of Darkness played a really big role in the way that if y'all, Live Is Up, the other short film that we did for Tales of Jovia, and there's an explosion in it at one point. We just throw blood on them, and I was like, screw it, and that was a very, like, it was my inner Sam Raimi coming out. So, I don't know. I'm trying to avoid another one without a ton of blood and their things, but I can't think of anything. So yeah,
I mean, I love Sam Raimi too, dude. Like, you gotta lean into what you love when you're a filmmaker, And that is a great part in Live. I love that part.
Yeah, it was just like we all were having so much fun that day. We're like, okay, let's just do it. Like, it's gonna be gross. It's good, but I don't know. It was enjoyable for me, and I quite enjoyed things like that. So yeah, Sam Raimi, Tarantino, people like that.
That's awesome. So, Tales of Jovia, big universe that you're creating. Tell everybody what you're trying to do and how they can support you before we get into this movie.
Yeah. So, Tales of Jovia is the first kind of series, first thing that we're really putting out film wise from the Jovian universe. There's like a bigger thing we've been making for about 8 years, and it started as a book, and we just kind of evolved it. This is the first kind of real attempt to make it a reality. So we're making a sci-fi short film series that we're kind of putting out on YouTube, that are, they range in both their place within our universe, their time. We have kind of this bigger playground or sandbox, which we're kind of playing with. But Tales of Jovia is like 4 or 5 short films as of now. We have plenty more planned. That kind of tells different stories of people living, in humanity's future, hundreds of thousands of years, um, 100,000 years in the future. So yeah, Live is about a bounty hunter. Um, Peace of Mind, which you were in, obviously is about a scientist and his AI companion getting trapped on a planet. We have a romance movie called Neon Comet that we're actually filming, hopefully this weekend, depending on how the weather is. Um, and Faceless, it's a VHS found footage horror, and a action adventure one called Recontact on Blue, which is like, so they're like, they range in their genre. And it was an attempt for us to kind of dabble in a bunch of different like things within film, try a bunch of different styles, and really make a proof of concept, since pitching your film only gets you so far sometimes. And I'm tired of sending emails and getting very little replies back, so I was like, you know what, let's just do it, and if we'll build the audience along the way. And so, kind of speaking of building audience, we're doing an Indiegogo right now. By the time this comes out, it will drop the following day, so it'll drop Monday the 17th. And it's a Indiegogo for the first phase of Tales of Jovia, which is excluding Live, which is already out. It starts with Peace of Mind and goes through Recontact on Bloom. And you get like early access to like digital copies of the all the short films, but also like VHS and DVD copies for certain contribution things, and a day on set. And I can't remember all of the things. I wrote them all, but I can't remember all of them. But a bunch of like cool things, giving away props. We're like raffling off some of the props that we made. We think that's a way to get people interested, because we build a lot of these things and then they sit on the shelf behind me. So figure it cleans out my house at the same time. But we're offering a bunch of things for kind of contributions to our short film series. And we're just hoping to kind of build an audience. That's really the biggest thing for us, is trying to find the people who want to watch a person explode on camera, like, or and at the same time watch a romance between these two scientists, collecting data. Like, it's kind of everything anybody could ever want out of like sci-fi projects. It just kind of covers the gamut. So yeah, that's Tales of Jovi, I think.
Perfect.
Something for everyone.
Yeah, and we'll link that in the show notes as well when it goes live. It may not be there on Sunday if you're listening to this straight away, but if you check back, we'll have a link in the show notes to the Indiegogo.
All right. Well, with that, I think it's time for our feature presentation. AI, Artificial Intelligence, from 2001. David is 11 years old. He weighs 60 pounds. He is 4 feet 6 inches tall. He has brown hair. His love is real, but he is not. David, a robotic boy, the first of his kind, programmed to love, is adopted as a test case by a Cybertronics employee and his wife. Though he gradually becomes their child, a series of unexpected circumstances make his life impossible for David. Without final acceptance by humans or machines, David embarks on a journey to discover where he truly belongs, uncovering a world in which the line between robot and machine is both vast and profoundly thin. Okay, so I love Spielberg. Spielberg is amazing. I had not seen this film before I picked it for Film Church. And also, we just got done with our Stanley Kubrick series. So we went through all of Kubrick's work, starting with the crappy documentaries that nobody has seen, going all the way to Eyes Wide Shut. And then this film is something that he planned on making and decided Spielberg should direct it. And I feel like I was just the perfect audience for this movie. I was going to be a sucker for it. I had no idea what to expect. I was absolutely blown away. This movie broke me. Like this might be my favorite Spielberg film, as well as one of the greatest films ever made.
Holy smokes! Wow.
What?
It's amazing. It is absolutely amazing. Who agrees with me? Anybody? Anybody?
I am not. I don't think I'm too far away from you. I mean,
Okay.
Just when you said it was your favorite Spielberg, Jurassic Park came roaring into my head, and I was like, "That's a high bar." If we're talking best Spielberg, that is, top tier filmmaking. Yeah. What about you?
The Spielberg comments what killed me too. I think the movie is long. I think that was a big part of it that really took it down a lot of notches for me. That beginning and that end were brutal, in my opinion. But the Jurassic Park, you got Indiana Jones, there's too much to well, no, there's no way. I was actually expecting a Jurassic Park, and I was watching it with the co-creator of Tales of Jovia stuff with me earlier today, and when we were watching it, he was like, "It was a lot like Minority Report." And I was like, "That's what it is. That's what the aesthetic." I was like, "It's not Jurassic Park. It's a different era of his work."
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not super far away
What-
from
It's
either
like
of y'all in opinion, but
it's like I think maybe it's like the thing is there's a few Spielberg films that I haven't seen, right? But I've grown up watching Spielberg. I've loved Spielberg my whole life. So I think just getting new to me Spielberg from this kind of era where it's like, the special effects are really good for its time, but because they're mixed with practical effects and all that. And it has that Spielberg magic, that wonderment. It got me.
Yeah.
It just got me so hard that I absolutely love this film. And now, of course, like 20 years from now, after I've seen every single Spielberg film a million times, I think that's what's going to determine like what I really think is the greatest Spielberg film. But man, there was, I mean, well, for one thing, I had no idea what to expect. Because the film starts out kind of dark. I mean, the first scene with what's his name, William Hurt. That whole scene, I was kind of like, but towards the end when he's like, yeah, but didn't God create Adam to love him? Like at that moment, I was like, oh my God. Yeah, didn't he? Like, is God's creation of that, like, whether you believe in God or not, just the story of Genesis and all that, like, is God's creation of mankind a selfish act? Because we're here, like, we're here, we live, laugh, love, suffer, pain, all of that stuff. God doesn't care. He's just jealous of your love. Like, he just wants you to love him. Like, as long as you love him and worship him, he doesn't care what you're going through. I mean, obviously, people can argue with me. That's fine. But that basic idea, I was just like, holy shit.
Yeah.
And I was so into that. And then as the film goes on, you get Haley Joel Osment, which, of course, I've grown up watching him as well. I knew nothing about this movie, honestly. I didn't know he was in it. I did, I mean, it's like right after he did not Signs, but Sixth Sense, and he's fucking incredible.
Yeah.
And that the tone of creepiness right off the bat, it like just the filmmaking just got me. Like I like as a filmmaker, I should have known like okay, the tone will change, but like the creepiness right off the bat, just I just never knew what to expect next in every scene. Everything surprised me. Um,
Yeah.
so the fact that the film was always a step ahead of me, I think really helped. Uh, and then getting into, I mean, like when his face melts, like it gets super creepy. And then when she leaves him in the woods, that scene really broke me. And it wasn't even, it was all, it wasn't till the end of the scene that I really started to like break down and cry because I grew up homeschooled. And the part where she's like, I'm sorry I didn't tell you about the world. I was just like, oh,
Yeah.
it really like dug into a core in me and was like, holy shit, like this is incredible. And
Yeah.
then it immediately cuts to Jude Law, who is also freaking amazing. Sorry, listeners, that it's just me on this podcast now talking about this movie. But it immediately cuts to Jude Law, and I was like, did he grow up? Like, do these robots grow up? Because you don't get back to Haley Joel Osment for a while, and so I thought maybe that was him for a little bit until you finally get back to little David.
Yeah.
And yeah, the whole tone changes, and you get all the long shots going through um the circusy craziness where they're destroying all the robots. I mean, it's just like everything in this movie, like every single scene, like just the emotions that I went through. It was like Spielberg, like I was made to watch this movie. Like Spielberg, it was like Spielberg knew, like, okay, now he's creeped out. Okay, now he's crying a little too much. Let's switch it up and get him into this cool robot-y stuff. And yeah, just every single second of the movie, I was just amazed.
Yeah.
I've got plenty more I can say, but I'll let someone else talk for now.
Chance, go ahead. You're the guest. What were your
Yeah.
like initial thoughts?
So I also had a range of emotions, but they were not all the positive emotions that you were having. I really thought the beginning of it was super boring and way too drawn out. So like for me, the movie didn't click for me until the middle of the circus stuff.
Yeah.
And at that point I was like, okay, I like this. This is fun. Let's keep going. And then I liked it all the way up until about the end of it. I actually really hated the ending. I thought the ending was like really didn't work for me at all because it was just like it got to the end and then it felt like nothing came of it. It felt like very absent of an ending. Like it felt like, and I know it's based off of a short story. It felt like a short story where like you can kind of just end a book, just kind of that can be the end of it. And for me, that's what the story felt like. I went through a lot of like, okay, I'm kind of bored here, but I'm sitting taking notes actively. So a lot of my notes are like, okay, like it's just like me writing like, okay, I guess like, and I was, it felt like it was a Spielberg and Kubrick movie together,
Yeah.
in ways that I didn't think were positive because I do think they're both great. I think Spielberg's style starts to wear on me a lot over time, and I was talking to my friend about this recently. It's not because of Spielberg; it's because everyone stole his style. So it's like it's not that like it's him; it's that like everything feels like him now, so it doesn't feel as unique. So when I go back and watch a Spielberg movie, I'm like, okay, but I feel like I've seen this a million times, not because of him, because everyone else copying him. So, but it didn't have that magic and wonder that I get from a Spielberg movie that I would like. Um, and it was very drawn out in a way that a Kubrick movie is, without the profound pieces that like I would like from a Kubrick movie. It just didn't feel like it spoke to my humanity in a lot of ways. It felt like I was like kind of drudging through a lot of it. So like, yeah, I ranged in emotions, but it was really, for me, like, it was like took a long time, and then once it hit really well. I thought like all
Yeah.
the stuff once Jude Law gets there, I was like, okay, I'm into it. I like the cyberpunk aesthetic of a lot of it. I think like the idea of like killing the robots to maintain superiority, quote unquote, during that the time that they have like humanity has left. I think is a uh, it's an interesting concept, and I think that that's what really got me. Is like the concepts are really good, and like
Mm.
once they started hitting in full, I enjoyed it. But it was it's also an issue I have with things like Oblivion, where it takes a little too long, in my opinion, to get to the point. And then once it gets to the point, I'm like, this is what we should have been doing. Why are we here for the whole movie?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's why it just but I think like Joel Osment was fantastic. I think that like it was a performance where I was like, even like as a kid, this kid is just like killing it. Like Sixth Sense is good, but this felt like a true performance of a lifetime for like a kid, Especially when he plays this other version later on, where it's like and you can see like because it didn't click to me how much he had changed by that point in the movie until I
Yeah.
saw him in juxtaposition to his other version, and I was like, yeah, that's like super cool. Like the kid was killing it. But yeah, I think it's the mom stuff that really drug out. I think that's what it was for me. Like that whole story, which is the main story, like obviously, but it was the particular pieces about his relationship with her that um, dragged for me. So yeah, I could talk about it forever. I could continue dragging on that point, but yeah.
How about you, Lewis? So you said this is not the first time you had seen the film. When did you first see it, and then what was it like going back to it?
I saw this film for the first time 21 years ago when it was released in cinemas. And
Wow.
I've been emotionally scarred by it ever since. So my mum, for some reason, took me to go and see it. I think potentially maybe I had seen a trailer and thought it would be like a fun romp with a little robot boy and a teddy bear through whatever. So I was like 9, 10 at the time, and I was like, I want to go and see this. And I was like, yeah, okay, let's go and see this film. I feel like every part of this film has been ingrained in my memory. When I rewatched it, it was like I'd watched it a week ago, which just shows me that I think it had such an impact on me the first time I saw it. It just didn't go where I thought it was going to go. It wasn't about what I thought it was going to be about, but still like destroyed me, I guess, to my core. I can remember like we talked about Teddy for a lot of the car ride home, just because I don't think I want to talk about anything other than the cuddly soft bear that was like his best friend. So it was a deep breath moment when I put the disc in. I was like, okay, here we go. I'm not sure what this is going to unlock in terms of memories, but I'm ready to do it. And it's just heartbreaking. I mean, Kubrick, the reason he passed it over to Spielberg after developing it for so long was he said that he didn't think he could give it the heart that Spielberg could. Which I agree with. I think Kubrick's a very cold director. I mean, I don't think there's many characters that you're drawn in with. They're all kind of anti-heroes. And this, I think, David would have been too creepy. I don't think he would have had the same warmth. So I think that decision is right. But, oh my gosh, it's just heartbreaking. Every moment.
I tried to rewatch it. I watched it last week, and then I tried to rewatch it Saturday night, and I was like, I can't do it right now. I was like,
No.
This is a deeply sad movie. I mean, to me, it was just deeply, deeply sad. And what's interesting, I think, like you said, Kubrick was like, this needs that Spielberg flair. Like it needs that Spielberg kind of love to it and magic. But what's interesting is I read that Spielberg is the one that kind of added that whole middle sequence with Gigolo Joe and all the machines like finding their parts and the whole machines getting abused and torn apart and for the entertainment of people. I'm not sure if that's true or not. It was like in someone's comment, I think on Letterboxd, someone's review. But it kind of makes sense that, like, I mean, Spielberg and Kubrick were friends, right? They had gotten to know each other for over 20 years at that
Yeah.
point. And I think Spielberg knew, and they had already been collaborating on it before Kubrick passed away, right? So he knew what Kubrick was going for and what he was trying to do. And Spielberg wrote the screenplay, but it's based on a 90-page treatment that Kubrick had developed, you know? So, like, I mean, that's basically a screenplay, right?
Yeah.
But I think Spielberg is enough of a genius and had enough sensibility to add in darker Kubrick elements to it to kind of pay respect to what Kubrick was going for, but still have that Spielberg flair. I mean, the part that really got me in this movie, I mean, like I said, I like bawled in the part when she leaves him in the woods, and then you get the Gigolo Joe sequence and the machines, and then there's the scene where they capture Gigolo Joe and David, and he's holding on to Teddy, and he drops him. And I'm like, I was like devastated at that point. But then you get the shot of Teddy like running,
Yeah.
the wide shot, and Teddy's like running up the hill. I was like, Spielberg, like it made me bust out laughing. And I was like, Spielberg, you son of a bitch. Like,
I think that you actually made a point that is why some of it didn't work. I didn't put two and two together that it is Spielberg doing an impression of Kubrick for parts of it.
yeah.
And that's why those parts that I'm like, it feels like it should be more Kubrick in it, and feels like it should be more Spielberg in it. It feels like he is really trying to do that balancing act, and that it's neither one of their movies for that purpose, that he is trying to do both of those things. Because I think if it was all those kind of flares of like him, the teddy bear getting up and running in a wide shot, or like things like that, or the circus, those things were wild in a way that like feels, they felt eye catching. They felt like it was a spectacle more so than a lecture, which I think Kubrick films in a lot of ways can feel like a lecture to watch, where it's like, I get it, it's really masterful, like masterfully put together, but it can be long, where Spielberg's films feel short. They feel like everything is happening constantly. There's not always the time to breathe. Still feels like you're like, okay, we needed that for a second, and then we're gonna get back to what we were doing. And this feels like it took a lot of pauses that felt like a Kubrick film, and I didn't put two and two together that it's Spielberg doing an impression of him, which for that it's remarkable. Like for those things that he is doing, and he's really trying to attempt it. Like the intro scene where they're talking, where he shows the AI for the first time. Feels like a scene that would be at like the beginning of 2001 where they're talking on the spaceship. Like it feels like a long drawn out scene. It's great for what it is. Like I thought that one stuck with me. Like that will be a scene that will forever be kind of ingrained in my mind. So
yeah, there's certain homages to Kubrick throughout, especially the tracking shot we get at the beginning of that circus scene where it's just the guy on the side is kind of, I'm not sure what he's going to go and get. Is he taking it to Lost and Found? He's taking Teddy to Lost and Found. Yeah. And we get that long tracking shot of him kind of coming up the stairs and coming all the way kind of halfway around the stadium and back down. And I'm like, this is just like the biggest kind of nod to Kubrick that you could get. You know, just that one shot with everything happening in the background. Like there's so much going on. And I was like, yeah, there's definitely like some touches here. You can tell that Spielberg is trying to I don't know, to share this, I guess, still.
Yeah. Yeah, well, he's approaching it from maybe like, how would Kubrick shoot this scene or whatever, you know? He was also using like lenses that Kubrick liked, you know? He's like, let's put the 14 on. That was one of his favorites, you know? And the lighting, my God, like the lighting in this movie, it looks, I mean, you can tell that they just straight up took those graphic design concept arts of the future and
Yeah.
just made it look the same, because it
Yeah.
looks like a futuristic painting. I mean, the dinner scene, even the dinner scene, where like the Haley Joel Osment starts like laughing, you know,
Mhm.
like the way that that's lit is just incredible. Like it's amazing. And I
And it's so
guess
overexposed as well. Like the
Mhm.
scenes, especially with Jude Law, where they've met the Einstein like thing, and they're
Dr.
walking
No.
back through. That's it.
Dr.
And
No.
they're walking back through, and it's like you can you. It's to the point where the characters are almost lit out of the scene. Like the
Yeah.
exposure on the light is so much that it's kind of bleeding into the character's frame. It's so bright all the time, you know. Nothing is kind of hidden in the shadows apart from the circus, because it's like the seedy underworld of what this world is supposed to be.
Yeah.
So it's such a interesting film. It's trying to say so much, I think, and I think that it nails 95% of it.
Yeah. What do you guys think of the whole the concept of AI in general and the way that this film presents it? Because I think that was part of it for me too, is the fact that I feel like that's where the world is heading, and I don't really see the organic human race continuing forever, you know. And I think that humans and machines will kind of merge at some point. Maybe not in our lifetime, but eventually. But maybe in our lifetime. I don't know. You know, it's like I'm not at the head of that. And like, there's lots of talk about AI right now with like Chat GPT and billionaires being like, it's gonna kill us all. Um, what's y'all's take on that?
I think that is one of the okay. So to speak to your point about artificial intelligence, it's gonna happen. It is happening. We just got to live with it. I think it makes some things, it makes life easier. The casting call that you saw is an AI like generated image. Like it was an image that we made through that. We typed in the words. Like I think it's a part of making our lives easier a lot. And I don't think it's going to end up like AI was, which is I think now that we're at a point where we're seeing the ramifications of artificial intelligence, we're seeing it play out in a way that not only this film didn't see, but science fiction. Right, I'm a big like sci-fi novel reader. They weren't even predicting it. It's a lot more integrated into who we are as humans. I think it's going to be only a facet of us becoming better at what we can do than it is going to be its own separate entity
Yeah,
from
like it's going to
us.
be an extension of ourselves rather than being its own thing.
Yeah, which is why the main dilemma, the core dilemma of the film, the idea that like it would be a robot that could live, I think is something we will inevitably get to. I think it's going to happen. But before that, we're going to already have integrated humans to a point where I think it wouldn't be a question. Like I'm very into like this kind of whole speculative, like where are we going to end up? And I think that we're more likely to end up cybernetic before we end up creating intelligent enough life. Because right now, I mean, even Chat GPT is it's a essentially beautiful soup. It's going and scraping that like the internet and dropping it in like through algorithms. So I'm not really like on the concern side. I think it's nonetheless. I think that when it comes to the AI thing, that was what it was interesting to see how they played it out. Where they were like, it is a separate thing from humanity, like where they're not augmented. It's very separated in the way that it was approached, and um, it was interesting to see that like them pondering, you know, this idea of well, what if a robot could love, kind of thing.
Yeah.
At a time where we're looking back on it now with an understanding of how AI is playing out and what I mean, it was just like even because of the film grain, the way that the film looks, it looks like it's from a different era. And so it feels like looking back on a time capsule, like looking at how people thought that AI was going to play out. And I don't think um, I think that what they're playing with, the content that they're using, this very kind of classic understanding of like robots and humans developing separately and robots becoming intelligent and emotional and so on. I mean, they're doing a top tier version of it. Like it's a very clear, beautiful depiction of like the love that the character has, which is I think why the juxtaposition at the end hit me so hard when you see his old version of himself, of David, where you're like, oh wow, he's so different. Like he is an emotional human being at that point. And like the circus stuff where like they're like, no, that's a kid. Like you can't, like all of that stuff I think plays really well in the movie. I think that it doesn't answer the question all the way though. And I think that like that's a good thing, but it felt like they were setting up him becoming real and then didn't it felt like that final fleshing out of what that meant for even David in the story wasn't fully done. And I don't know, maybe I'm just like I missed something in watching it, or you know, I don't know, like I don't know what it is, but it felt like there was something at the very end that like it felt like we were trying to get to what is like what does it mean for him to be alive, and it was like him searching for something, but then he searched for it and he like found it, and then it was just like I really thought the movie was going to end before the whole end part actually happened.
Yeah.
So I thought it was going to end right there, and so for me, like especially at that point, I was like, I didn't really do nothing happened here. Like, it felt like the movie just ended, and even at the end, I was like, yeah, but I felt like a copped out, like added on ending where he gets what he wants at the end, but it didn't really tell me anything about like AI and like his perception on the world and what really it did mean to him. Outside of the fact that he did love somebody, but I feel like we knew that within the first 10 minutes of the movie that he like how he felt about her, or at least first 10 minutes of him being in that interaction space, because obviously he's a robot for the first 15, 20. So yeah, I don't know, maybe I missed something at the very end, but that it felt like it didn't answer the question I wanted to answer, and maybe that's what I was going into it incorrectly for, where I was like, I wanted to answer this question about what they proposed, which is like what it means for him to be alive, or get him to that point. And yeah, it felt like it just kind of drooled off at the end. So
I have thoughts, but first, Lewis.
Yeah, I mean, I think that especially the first half of the film, it just positions it as the humans are seeing what they want to see. With the whole, if he's this nice, if he can be this good, he can also be bad. And it's like throughout we just see David just wanting to. He's just been imprinted on. He's just doing what he's programmed to do, which is to love and be loved in return. But the the adults see it as like, he's corrupted by the other boy. He's kind of the dad is kind of naysaying his decision, and that's what ultimately leads him to being deposited in the way that he is. It's just, I think that it says a lot about human nature, and also just sometimes. Yeah, like it takes like aliens to give him what he wants. That's the point. He can't get what he needs from the human race as an AI. It's not gonna. He's too far past us to be fulfilled by the human race.
that is beautiful, A, and B, that I think is the issue. That I think is where all my issues for the movie stem from, is my want for them to speak on what artificial intelligence means opposed to the way humanity interacts with it. And that, you're right, the movie was far more about the way that the humanity interacted with it. And now the way, even after you said it, it reframed. Like all the scenes re-clicked in my head, and I went, God damn, that is right. That is like that is what that I was searching for, an answer they weren't trying, or like for an answer they weren't trying to give me. They were trying to give me an answer about humanity, and I was looking for an answer about AI. Wow, that changed my whole perspective
I feel
the
like
film
it's done
really
really.
fast.
I feel like it's done really well though, because I don't think Spielberg is like we're not presented with an AI that is being useful in terms of like that the humans on the other side would see useful. You know, we see Jude Law's character kind of being a gigolo and stuff like that. But throughout all the AI that we come in contact with, people are either like they want to destroy them and track them down, or trying to kind of push them away. Like even with Teddy, they're like, "Oh, he's outdated." And I'm like, "Teddy is the coolest thing, you little brat." Like,
Teddy is so
take
rad.
Teddy everywhere. Yeah, he's the best.
He was the best. I have a note. Teddy is so good. He's my favorite part of the movie.
He's the best. He's the best. He's just there. And I think right the last shot, it doesn't make me emotional until Teddy gets up on the bed, and then I'm like, "He's still there. Teddy's still there." What are your thoughts, Branden?
Okay, so the end. To me, they're not aliens. Is that what you guys thought? I get why you thought that.
You thought
Because they
were...
look like aliens, but is that what y'all? That's how y'all interpreted it, I assume.
Mm-hmm.
I thought they were. So when I first was watching it, I was like, they definitely are evolved AI. Like they are the
Yes.
AI after over time. That's what I assumed they were.
Yeah.
And then I didn't have another shorthand term for evolved AI opposed to
Yeah,
they
I
look
mean
like
they're
aliens.
basically the merge of the human race and AI. Like they eventually merged together, and now they're this advanced thing. But they're too advanced. They lost something there. They lost part of their humanity somehow. And they're realizing that all the meaning was in all the people that got left behind, and that's why they're digging people up and trying to recover their memories and find fragments of hair with memories and all of that stuff, is because it's the stories of those people that matter, and that's what gives them meaning. Um, and and to me, that's kind of like I said, that's kind of where I see the future. I mean, you even said it yourself. It was like you think that we'll kind of merge before we even get to a point where we're like, oh no, is AI going to kill us? Because I mean, to me, we're kind of already getting there. It's like we carry our phones around everywhere we go. You know what I mean? And like 100 years ago, people would have looked at us like, what is this device that is a part of your body now?
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, like at some point, I guess, maybe we'll have like some kind of chip, or we can, we'll have a watch that will just connect to our brains, where if AI is faulty or negative in some way, we'll immediately be able to communicate with it with our minds, or something like that. And I know this sounds all sci-fi, but like that's the future. Like, it's inevitable. Like whether like and it is so depressing. Like it is very depressing to think about turning into these weird looking silicone based people, whatever you want to call them. But like I feel like there's just nothing, like we're already heading that direction. Like I don't feel like there's anything we can necessarily do about it. And what the film made me realize was that, and this is something like, I mean, this story is as old as time. Like, it made me realize, like, our existence right now is really all that matters. This little sliver of time that we get to be alive and be in this world might be all we get. So, like, tell the people that you love them. If you've got, like, any relationships that need to get fixed, fix them. Say your piece, say what you need to say. Because yeah, it's like it's like Teddy said, 50 years is not a long time.
No.
Yeah.
But really all that David wanted was he didn't even really want 50 years. He really just wanted his mother to tell him that she loved him.
Yeah.
That's really all he wanted.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think back to your point about the alien evolved
the
robot
mecha,
thing.
the advanced mecha.
I didn't see it as a addition to humans. I saw it as a way. I agree with the reclaiming of humanity, like that piece of it. But I thought they were just robots. I thought they were just AI that had evolved past, like that they have themselves evolved. And it seemed bleak for that reason, for the fact that they weren't like a combination. It was just a lack of humanity in it. That made it feel bleak. And also, fingers crossed, we do become cyborgs because I want to live forever, and I think that's our best bet at it. It's, I'll become a brain of fat kind of thing before. So yeah, no, I think so. That's why
you'll be that one guy that was like, I was on the cover of Time magazine 70 years ago.
I want to be a Futurama character. I want to be like like the Nixon in a jar thing. Yeah. So no, but I think that's what made it so bleak at the end for me, was that it felt like, despite what was being shown to us by humanity, the lack thereof it and the recreation of it, especially in that shortened time period, that one day that they have, I think made it special. So then it was just kind of this repeated cycle of trying to create this, what was special about humanity now that it's gone. But I think for me, it was like far bleaker thinking of it as, I felt like if I thought about it as aliens, it'd be like a speculative biology book. I don't know if y'all read speculative biology books. But they do, like at the end of it, it's like, and I'm an alien from 30,000, years in the future. This is what's going, blah, blah, blah. But, so I didn't want to think about it like that because it felt cheesier, I guess, to immediately think of it as aliens finding people. And it felt like more of an extension of the main story to think of it as these kind of AI creatures that are coming back to see what they lost, and inevitably recreating only the good parts of what humanity had to offer, despite the fact that we only saw like the negative. I mean, I don't think there was a really solid positive expression of humanity through most of the film. Even at the end, like, it felt soured by the fact that we knew it was only one day, and we knew it was kind of all for a show. Because like, even then, they're keeping everything sterile for people, like when they're like, you don't tell them, all of that stuff. It's today kind of stuff, like just making it felt like they were dealing with somebody who was having like some kind of like mental deterioration, where you're just trying to keep them, when they're lucid, keep them lucid for that bit. And that so it felt even tainted at the end with like what they're trying to gain of humanity. It's just these little brief happy moments when, if it was created in totality, who's to say how they would react to the creatures that are now there and hyper evolved. Also, I don't know if y'all read Saga, but the face, I don't know if y'all read comics at all, but the face robot things reminded me of a character from there who has a TV face. Who,
nice.
Shows all his emotions on his face. So I was like, oh shit, that looks like that.
Yeah. That does put it in a different perspective for me, because I think you're right that, like, when you really look at the different human characters that are presented, they're not great.
No.
They're really not. They're all pretty horrible.
Yeah.
That changes my perspective a lot. I have to rewatch it now.
Yeah, I think that definitely does change, my perspective a little bit. I think that I just bring my baggage with Spielberg. If I see something a little bit weird, I'm like, oh, he loves aliens. Maybe it's that. Close Encounters, E.T., he's done it before. He likes the extraterrestrial kind of feeling. I think it makes more sense now that we've been talking about them as AI. But when they say, oh, he had, when they get him out of the ice and they're like, oh, he had contact with them, I just assume that them were like it is the humans, but it's the beings on this planet before they arrived, I guess. But it makes more sense as AI. I think that's a better rounded out story to finish it off. But one of my favorite things, which kind of clicked in a few days after watching it, was he did a Kubrick. In 2001, Kubrick fast forwards 2,000 years in a shot. So does Spielberg.
Yeah.
And it's released in 2001.
And it's funny because most people thought that that ending was Spielberg's spin on it, on the story. And it's like, no, this is the ending Kubrick had.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to Spielberg this. He's like, this is what he had.
Yeah.
I feel like Spielberg would have given us like a glimpse at what was going to happen next, and then be like, and we're done. And like Kubrick one is like, 2,000 years in the future. Here's a whole nother 20 minutes to film.
The end of this reminds me a lot of Lynch's Elephant Man, which I won't say exactly why if you haven't seen it, but this theme of just wanting to live or exist as a normal human for a day or a period of time, is a theme that kind of ends the Elephant Man, and that is also very sad. So I think that maybe pulling from that as well, but this ending is just devastating. And I think that anybody that has lost someone would be like, what I wouldn't give just have a day with them again. It's like these human emotions of grief and like trauma and stuff all coming through in someone that's supposed to be programmed to not feel that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It
did give me hope for the future that maybe someday someone will be able to make me come back for a day with all the hair that I've shed on this earth.
Yeah. Exactly.
I've
just
shed
put it
a
in
lot.
the pocket of a teddy bear. Yeah. Definitely as a father, this film affects me a lot more, I think, than it would have normally done. Just the themes of kind of giving up a child, and like I know firsthand, that what love from a child feels like, and if I know that it's a robot, and there's not that through birth and everything, but it's still knowing the feelings that the child must go through when abandoned is heartbreaking.
Yeah.
But that's what Spielberg's doing. He's messing with our emotional strings. He's pulling on them. So
I think another reason that this film is so high for me is the fact that Robin Williams has a cameo. Like just one of the greatest of all time.
Yeah.
So I looked at the cast before I started watching because I was like, I got to see who's all in it. Like I knew Haley Joel Osment was in it, but I was like, I don't know anybody else. And that was one of the first people who popped up, and I was like excited. I was waiting for that, and then it just wasn't him actually there, and I was like, oh, I'm slightly disappointed now. Like I was expecting this big. Have y'all seen Valerian, that sci-fi movie? Came out a couple years ago. Okay, well, Ethan Hawke's in it, and he's this big kind of bombastic character, and I was expecting that because you get the cyberpunk world, and I was expecting like they were going to go in, it was going to be him in like a suit and like doing this big thing, and then I was like disappointed, and then I was like, it's Robin Williams in a role. I can't be that disappointed. And then it was enjoyable for the rest of it.
Yeah. Well, he does play Bicentennial Man. if you want to see him as a robot. I haven't actually seen it, but it's definitely one I need to see.
I'm gonna add it to my list now.
Yeah.
I'd just like to imagine that when the film ends, after it, Teddy just goes off with the AI/aliens and lives a very happy life where people adore him instead of the other way around.
Yeah.
That's kind of my follow-up, is like justice for Teddy. And I think that's been like my overarching theme for the last 21 years, because when he kind of drops from, when David gets caught up in the net and he gets dropped and runs after him, I was positive in my mind that David let go and was like, I don't need you anymore. I don't know where that came from. I don't know if it's like, because it wasn't in the movie, but somehow my emotional reaction to it had become David had rejected him. Which was bizarre, because that's not what happens at all,
It's far sadder.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh, just this shot of them in the little ship underwater, and he's just like, please, Blue Fairy, make me a real boy. And Teddy's like, I'm going to just wait here with you. Oh. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was going to be the end of the movie when it starts, going out and the narrator comes in and he says that he just prayed and prayed and prayed. I was like, oh man. I mean, which is still a beautifully tragic ending.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then he was like, 2,000 years passed, and I was like, oh, God. It's just so devastating.
Yeah.
I think I would have preferred it ending there, to be honest. I think that the end, giving him that mother thing at the end, while we've talked about the the haunting kind of beauty of that artificial intelligence coming back and bring them back to life, it feels like it was somewhat unjustified after the depiction of humanity, where it felt like an end that was kind of justified for the film by letting it kind of end on that very sad note of he was failed by humanity, opposed to him, like, his wish never coming true, not because of anything other than like what he was put through. I think I would have rather it stopped there. There was just it felt like a tragic, beautiful ending to everything.
Don't you think it may have been too tragic? I feel like if it had ended there, I would have just been like, oh God, not been able to kind of get out of bed for a week in reaction to it. I think that, that the semi-happy ending at least leaves you being like, okay, David got what he wanted in the end, thank goodness for that.
I feel like I didn't gain a lot from the ending. That's the thing for me. So like, if I would have gained a ton from that ending, I would have been like, yeah, it needed to happen. But I don't know. There's something that is just tragic about the movie in the end, anyways. Like, it is very sad, and I felt like it could have ended on that note and been just a sad ending to a movie. I think some movies need that. We tend to, filmmakers tend to do that a lot, where they're like, okay, now let's give it a little bit of a bow at the end to make it feel a little better. And some things like this could have actually probably, it would have been it would have been heart-wrenching. If that was the end, it would have been heart-wrenching. But it might have, like, I would love to see a version of it where it does stop there, where credits roll right there, and see how I feel about, the movie afterwards, and see if it really changes my depiction.
Yeah, I mean, to me, if it had ended right there, I feel like it would have been saying something about just believing in things that aren't real. Like, kind of saying something about religion, or, because it's like he prayed and prayed and prayed, and they just forever, for all time, and his prayers never came true.
It's a good point.
Yeah. But speaking of Teddy, when he first came on and I started hearing his voice, I don't know if you got this, but I was like, he kind of sounds like John McKinney, who plays Orb in our film.
Yes! I said that to Harold today. I was like, he sounds like John, I think. And he was like, oh, we shouldn't worry about it. I was like, I'm not worried. I'm just like, I think that we might have gotten the voice effect dialed down and tone dialed down in a way that sounded identical to it. Yeah. I heard it quite a bit throughout it.
I think it's cool, He's got just that perfect AI voice.
I'll say it's a homage
Yeah.
to AI.
To Teddy.
There actually was one more thing I wanted to note. There, and it's the dumbest thing, but I figured it's the only chance I'm ever going to get to talk about this movie. So Jude Law does the spin when he leaves the circus. I don't know if y'all, okay, so you know like how when everything ends at the circus, they kind of leave just together, and it doesn't really have a like the humans are fighting the circus and they're leaving. When they're leaving, they separate hands right at the little turnstile at the front, and Jude Law does this spin, like an unneeded, unnecessary twirl through the turnstile, and it was so funny to me watching it. Like it felt like just I don't know if y'all watched Boba Fett, but they did a spin in it and he shoots, and he like it's unnecessary spins, and it really got me because like I'm just watching them like rapidly leave the circus. It's like everything's going haywire. And Jude Law's like, spins needed for this turnstile. And he's not spinning with the turnstile. It's like the opposite direction. It's a really weird thing. But I had to note it because it just made me laugh so hard. Like, well, I had to pause the movie and rewind it and just like rewatch it to make sure I saw that properly. Because I was laughing so hard throughout it.
That's great. I'm gonna have to go back and look
movie.
for that. Yeah. I'm gonna have to go back and look for that because I absolutely love Jude Law in this movie. He is so
He's great. Yeah.
good. I mean, I think this is maybe his best role.
Yeah,
hands down. He's so good. That's all.
he is good. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
he's fantastic.
He does play it with that kind of manic, like, I don't know, carefree energy that you would expect from a gigolo robot. You know, he's always just kind of like, you know, cracking jokes and kind of being a bit slimy, you know, when he's going about things. I think it's a really, really good performance, definitely.
Yeah, because he's like a cool robot, like the way that he, like when he's walking through the woods, and he does his whole like neck snap thing to turn on the radio. It's just so smooth. It is.
My last bit of trivia that I really like is that there's another connection between Kubrick and Spielberg. When Kubrick was developing this, and he kind of were looking for people to cast, he cast Joseph Mazzello as David, who was Tim in Jurassic Park. And there was a lot of interviews around the time of him saying, you know, my whole schedule has been opened up for this Kubrick film about artificial intelligence. I'm ready to do it. And it just never came to be. So it could have been a little bit different. He could have been our David.
Yeah. That's interesting. I feel like he would have been too old by then.
I mean, this was being developed before Eyes Wide Shut, which was 1999. So probably, I mean, that was being developed for like 3-4 years. So like 94, 95, which was a couple of years after Jurassic Park.
I think part of the reason that Kubrick also gave it over to Spielberg was because he knew that with his filmmaking style that the kid would grow too fast.
Yeah.
Because he would take over a year to shoot it, whereas Spielberg could like get it done.
Yeah. He was also worried about technological advances as well. He didn't think that it would be suitable for how he wanted it to look. Which is crazy.
I was just saying he's gonna grow up between shots. Like the amount of shots that Kubrick does, it's gonna be like 300 shots in. The kid's gonna have a beard, so it's gonna...
Exactly. Yeah, take one and take 270 is just gonna look completely different.
Yeah, it's actually wild. I never. I'm glad that it went to Spielberg specifically for the casting purposes. I think that he is the perfect person to play David. Like it was, he's like just cute enough as a kid to like play the cute side of like a toy child character, but also like he's been acting for so long at that point in his life that he brought such a nuance to it, where you can see the changes in his behavior. It was just for the casting purposes. It's better than it went to Spielberg. He also he works with kids a lot more often, and you know. I can't think of a Kubrick film where he does work with children, like children all the time kind of thing, where Spielberg has kind of that rapport where he does work with a lot of children. And so probably was the easier set to be on too than with him there.
And also, it's a good sell for the audience. Haley Joel Osment, he is, he was at this time like a bankable star after Sixth Sense. People wanted to see more of him. And with the fact he's on screen 100% of the time, it's like you needed someone that people were going to want to come and see, So it is, like you said, perfect casting all around.
Yeah. I know this film didn't do great when it came out. People criticized it a lot, but I think it's aged very well.
I think the tide is turning. Like I said, there's an English critic called Mark Kermode that I really like. He said when it first came out, he really didn't like it, and now he's coming around to it and thinks it's probably one of Spielberg's best. I think that's a lot of people's reaction to it, is because it is cold. It's not like a warm film. Jurassic Park is so fun, and E.T. is so full of like, childhood wonder and just like, being a kid. And this is just very sterile. And I think that's probably the difference for people and why people now are coming around to it a little bit more.
Yeah. Makes sense. Well, if there's nothing else, do we want to try to guess what each of us rated the film?
Yes, let's do it.
Sweet.
So this is the part of the show. Oh, go ahead, Branden. Sorry.
You go ahead, Lewis.
No, it's okay. I'm jumping into your lines.
Normally, we rate all of our films on Letterboxd. Lewis and I both have Letterboxd. And we rate, 1 to 5 stars, 5 being the most. So I don't know. We have one friend that doesn't participate in the star ratings, but do you want to participate, Chance?
Oh yeah, I'll participate.
Okay,
I have
cool.
I have a out of 10, so I'll just half it. So yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, so, and we do half stars, so Letterboxd does half stars. So
cool.
Yeah, we'll each do rounds and try to guess what each of us rated. So I'll go first. Lewis, I think you rated it. I'm gonna say you rated it 4.5. I think it's not quite 5. And Chance, I think you rated it maybe 3.5.
Branden, I think you rated it a 5. I don't think you could say that it was Spielberg's best and potentially one of the greatest films of all time without being a 5. And Chance, I think I'm going to go the same. I think that you gave it 3.5 as well.
I think I'm going to have to go with Brandon's rating for you, Lewis, and say 4.5. But it's not a 5. But and Branden, yeah, you gave it a 5 out of 5. No doubt. There's no doubt in my mind.
You guys don't know me? What are you talking about? Yeah, I gave it 5. 5 out of 5. Incredible.
Yeah.
I cried multiple times. I mean, if a movie makes me cry, I'm like, they're doing something right.
Yeah. I gave it 4.5. You were both correct. It did also make me cry, and I think that the half star has been knocked out for the fact that they were like, robots aren't allowed there. It's called Manhattan. Like, oh, God. That's the worst. That is awful. So that was the half a star deducted for me.
Nice.
Y'all were both wrong. I am a very harsh critic a lot of the time when it comes to star ratings. I gave it a 2.5 because I gave it a 5 out of 10.
Yeah.
I gave it 2.5. It felt very average. Like it was very middle of the road in a lot of ways to me. Mostly because, like I said, I thought it was playing with the. It's a Spielberg interpretation of a Kubrick film, and that didn't always work for me. Sometimes it worked really well, and after this, I'd bump it up to a 3 out of 5. After the conversation, I think y'all turned the tides for some of my critiques of it. And if I watched it again, I have this way with a lot of movies that I'm like, on first watch, that if I watch it a couple times, I might be like, God damn it, there's some things that really work in this film. Star Wars Episode 8 being a key example, where I was like, I hated it, and I came back and was like, damn it, some of these things do work really well in it. So yeah, I'll give it a 5. 5 or sorry, 2.5 to 3.
Cool.
Awesome. I always think of Guillermo del Toro. He tweeted something once like, to watch a film once is to flirt with it. To watch it multiple times is to take it out on a date. And I was like, yes, that is perfect. That makes so much sense to me now. Like, that's why I always try to watch films multiple times.
Well, what the heck, now that this Kubrick series is officially done and in the grave, what are we watching next week?
It's not anything Kubrick related, unfortunately, but it is something that we've kind of already semi-talked about, I guess. We're going to go back, Branden, and we are going to finish Joanna Hogg's Souvenir trilogy. We're going to watch The Eternal Daughter from 2022.
I'm excited for this.
So,
I've
already seen it. Yeah, but we've just... hey, we're going to finish out the series. I want to talk to you about it.
Yeah, I'm excited for that. Well, that'll be next Sunday, everybody. And with that, I think we've come to the end of the show. And you can, of course, find us on all social media platforms at Film Church Radio. Lewis and I are both on Letterboxd. I am at Selmascope and Lewis is at WalkerLewis3007. There you can keep up with what we've been watching, what we rate things, all of that good stuff, and see, reviews that we leave on there. You can leave us a rating and review on all our podcast platforms, all of our social medias. Engage in this conversation of religiously cinematic cinema. That's a weird way to say it. And of course, thank you, Chance, for being here. Awesome to have you. We'll have to have you back in the future. You can find him on all social media at Inwood Park Productions. Be sure to check the show notes for our film Peace of Mind coming out soon, and also for the Indiegogo link in the show notes below. But yeah, we'll see you next Sunday for more Film Church. The only thing left to say is...
She will make you a real boy, for I will make her a real woman, and all will be right with the world because you held my hand and saved my brain, so that once again my customers may ask for me by name, Gigolo Joe, what do you know?
Why do you do that?
That's just what he does.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen.